Have you ever loved someone so honestly, that you started betraying yourself just to keep them comfortable? Not because you were weak. Not because you had no standards. But because you kept believing that one more conversation, one more act of patience, one more night of understanding, would finally make them see your worth. And that is where many good men lose years of their lives. Not in heartbreak. Not in betrayal. But in the illusion that loyalty eventually gets rewarded in a world that often rewards performance, leverage, and emotional detachment instead. In this video, we're going to walk through a truth most people only understand after they've been broken by it: what really happens when a woman treats a loyal man like an option, and what changes the moment he finally goes silent. We'll go through the emotional trap, the hidden power dynamic, the modern social conditioning behind it, the mistake most men make when they try to love harder, and why the silence she once mocked becomes the one thing she can't escape later. And stay with me until the end, because the final lesson is the one most men learn too late. Sometimes the real heartbreak isn't that she left, it's that you abandoned yourself long before she ever did. This is not about revenge. It's about recognition. It's about seeing clearly. And once you see clearly, you stop begging chaos to love you back. A brief truth before we begin. We live in a culture that tells people to chase intensity and call it love. To chase validation and call it confidence. To chase attention and call it freedom. But ancient wisdom, and brutal modern experience, both reveal the same thing: where there is no respect, love becomes theater. And in theater, the person who performs less often controls more. That is the part nobody tells men early enough. They tell you to open up. To communicate more. To be patient. To prove yourself. To keep showing up. And sometimes those things are noble. But in the wrong hands, your openness becomes access. Your patience becomes permission. Your consistency becomes something taken for granted. And your loyalty becomes the very tool used to measure how much disrespect you're willing to survive. So in this video, we're going deeper than surface-level breakup advice. We're talking about power. We're talking about emotional self-respect. We're talking about what happens when a man stops trying to be chosen, and finally chooses himself. Let's begin. Underscore 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 underscore. 1. She took you for granted while you were busy being real. At first, it didn't look like betrayal. That's what makes it dangerous. It looked like mixed signals. It looked like inconsistency. It looked like she's just going through something. It looked like maybe she needs space. It looked like you telling yourself not to overreact. So you stayed reasonable. You sent the thoughtful message. You waited for the reply. You ignored the shift in tone. You overlooked the late responses, the emotional distance, the dry energy, the way she could laugh online while giving you nothing in private. And because your intentions were real, you kept interpreting her behavior through your own honesty. That is one of the oldest traps in human relationships. Good people often project their own sincerity onto people who are operating from convenience. You thought she was confused. Sometimes she was simply calculating. Not always in a dramatic, villainous way. Not always consciously. But in the quiet, modern way people do now, always scanning, always comparing, always keeping one foot near the exit while still enjoying the benefits of being adored. That's what made it so painful. You were trying to build something. She was trying to see what else she could keep open while you built it. You planned around her. She fit you in when it was useful. You gave her consistency. She gave you uncertainty. You listened when she was overwhelmed. She vanished when you needed clarity. You were showing up like someone building a future. She was moving like someone preserving optionality. And if you've lived this, then you know the specific kind of exhaustion it creates. It's the exhaustion of staring at your phone at 11:47 p.m., seeing that she watched your story but still didn't answer your message. It's the exhaustion of sitting across from her at dinner, feeling her body there but her attention somewhere else. It's the exhaustion of trying to sound calm while your intuition keeps whispering, something here is off. It's the exhaustion of rehearsing conversations in your head because you already know that the moment you bring up the imbalance, somehow you'll become the problem. That is how self-betrayal begins. Not all at once. Piece by piece. You stop saying what you really feel because you don't want to ruin the vibe. You stop questioning what bothers you because you don't want to seem insecure. You stop expecting reciprocity because you've slowly been trained to be grateful for crumbs. And that's the real poison, not just what she did, but what you started accepting as normal. Modern society glamorizes this kind of imbalance. It praises being unbothered while rewarding emotional irresponsibility. It teaches people how to attract attention, not how to honor devotion. And in that environment, a loyal man can become invisible precisely because he is stable. Stable doesn't feel exciting to someone addicted to chaos. Consistent doesn't feel rare to someone who has never built anything that required discipline. And respectful doesn't feel powerful to someone who confuses emotional control with emotional depth. So she took you for granted. Not because your value was low, but because your presence became familiar, and many people don't respect what they assume will remain available. That's the first hard truth. It was never that you had nothing to offer. It was that you kept offering it in a place where it was no longer being honored. And the more you gave without being met, the more she unconsciously learned that your loyalty had no edge. That your patience had no threshold. That your kindness would keep absorbing what should have been disqualifying. People rarely admit this out loud, but human nature often tests the boundaries of what it can get away with. And if every red flag is forgiven, every silence is excused, every disrespect is rationalized, then sooner or later the relationship stops being a bond, and becomes a study in tolerated imbalance. That is where many men lose themselves. Not because they loved, but because they kept loving after the truth had already started showing itself. And maybe that was you. Maybe you were the one defending her to your friends when even they could see the shift. Maybe you were the one explaining away her distance, her coldness, her flirtation with attention, her half-hearted presence. Maybe you kept believing that if you became a little softer, a little stronger, a little more understanding, she'd finally return to the version of herself you first met. But here is the painful truth. Sometimes the version of her you fell for was not the whole truth. Sometimes it was only the version that appears before comfort replaces effort. And when comfort replaces effort, what remains is character. That is when masks fall. That is when patterns reveal themselves. That is when the relationship stops asking, "How much do you love her?" and starts asking, "How much of yourself are you willing to lose to keep this going?" If you ignore that question long enough, life will answer it for you. Usually with pain. Usually with silence. Usually with the recognize the man you've become. Underscore 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 underscore. 2. You tried everything, and that was the problem. There is a moment many men never talk about. It's the moment you realize you weren't just trying to save the relationship. You were trying to save your image of yourself inside it. Because if she didn't choose you fully, then what did that say about everything you gave? So you tried harder. You planned more. You explained more. You forgave more. You lowered your ego, softened your tone, held back your frustration, gave her more chances than your own nervous system could afford. You thought effort would fix what respect had already abandoned. That is one of the cruelest lies men tell themselves in love. That if they become more patient, they will be more valued. That if they become more understanding, they will be more secure. That if they absorb enough confusion with grace, eventually the other person will feel safe enough to become honest. But effort cannot transform someone who benefits from your confusion. And that is the part that hurts to face. Because once you see that possibility, you also have to face the fact that part of you knew something was wrong much earlier than you admitted. You saw the way she lit up for strangers and dimmed for you. You saw how quickly she could respond when it mattered to her. You saw the provocative posts, the calculated distance, the vague explanations, the way every uncomfortable conversation somehow turned into a discussion about your tone, your timing, your insecurity. And still, you stayed. Not because you were foolish. Because you were attached to hope. Hope is one of the most beautiful forces in life. It is also one of the most dangerous when it attaches itself to inconsistency. Because once hope bonds with intermittent affection, it becomes addiction. One sweet night resets 10 cold ones. One vulnerable confession makes you forget weeks of emotional starvation. One "I miss you" pulls you back into a cycle your soul already knows is harming you. And that is why trying everything became the problem. You kept proving you would stay no matter how unclear, unbalanced, or humiliating it became. You made surprise plans for someone who treated certainty like a burden. You sent heartfelt messages to someone who had already become casual with your heart. You defended her name while secretly bleeding from her behavior. You started editing yourself, your words, your needs, your instincts, just to avoid another emotional shutdown. That is not love. That is emotional bargaining. And the longer it goes on, the more a man begins to fracture. You hesitate before speaking. You monitor your own reactions. You become hyper-aware of tone, timing, phrasing. You start carrying the relationship like fragile glass while the other person handles it like something replaceable. You tell yourself you're being mature. But inside, you are disappearing. This is where silent authority begins to matter. Because real strength is not just staying calm. Real strength is noticing when your calmness is being used to keep you compliant. Machiavelli understood something uncomfortable about human behavior. Many people do not merely respond to kindness, they study weakness, leverage access, and adapt to what you will permit. Not everyone does this with malicious intent. But the effect is the same. If your emotional door has no lock, eventually someone careless, or selfish, will walk through it with dirty shoes and call it intimacy. And then one day, you look up and realize you've been auditioning for a role she was never fully committed to giving you. That is the humiliation men rarely describe well. Not just that she hurt you, but that you kept volunteering your heart to a place that was slowly training you to distrust your own. You thought maybe you weren't attractive enough. Maybe not successful enough. Maybe not dominant enough. Maybe not mysterious enough. So you improved what didn't need improving while ignoring what did need confronting. You blamed your body, your money, your schedule, your communication style, your emotional expression. Anything except the simple, brutal possibility that the relationship was fundamentally disrespectful. And once you avoid that truth long enough, the damage becomes deeper than heartbreak. It becomes identity erosion. You stop feeling chosen. Then you stop feeling grounded. Then you stop feeling like yourself at all. That is why so many men leave these situations saying, "I don't even know who I was in that relationship." Because they were no longer relating from truth. They were adapting from fear. Fear of loss. Fear of loneliness. Fear of being replaced. Fear that leaving would mean all that sacrifice meant nothing. But listen carefully. Sometimes trying everything is not evidence of devotion. Sometimes it is evidence that you are refusing to accept what the situation has already revealed. You were not weak because you tried. You were human. But healing begins the moment you stop turning loyalty into self-erasure. The moment you stop asking, "How do I make her see me?" and start asking, "Why did I keep offering myself where I was barely being seen at all?" That question changes everything. Because once a man asks it honestly, he is already beginning to wake up. Underscore 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 underscore. 3. She thought you'd never walk. That belief is what gave her power. Not your love. Not your heart. Not your patience. Her belief that no matter what happened, you would remain. That belief changes the entire emotional economy of a relationship. Once someone feels they cannot lose you, effort often fades. Sensitivity fades. Care becomes casual. Respect becomes negotiable. This is not only about women or relationships. It is about human nature. People often become careless with what they think is guaranteed. And maybe that is exactly what happened. She learned your pattern. She learned that after silence, you would reach out. After disrespect, you would explain. After distance, you would compensate. After confusion, you would seek clarity on both your behalf and hers. She learned that your heart was reliable. And instead of protecting that, she built comfort on top of it. That is where the invisible shift happens, when your devotion stops being received as a gift and starts being treated like a utility. You became the emotional backup generator. The source she could return to after chaos. The calm she expected without honoring the man who carried it. And because you loved deeply, she mistook emotional depth for emotional captivity. She thought your loyalty meant you lacked the courage to leave. She thought your consistency meant you'd tolerate anything. She thought your silence after certain wounds meant you were harmless, manageable, permanently attached. But what she didn't understand, what many people never understand until it's too late, is that the quietest men often leave the deepest when they finally see clearly. Not all men explode. Some withdraw with devastating finality. No screaming. No performance. No dramatic speech. Just a shift. The first sign is subtle. You stop sending the first message. You stop chasing clarity. You stop trying to decode every inconsistency. You stop asking for what should be obvious. You stop offering the emotional labor that has kept the connection alive. At first, she may not notice. Then she notices. And that is when the psychological reversal begins. Because people who are used to being pursued often do not value presence until presence is removed. Now she checks the phone and sees no message. Now she opens the app and notices you didn't view the story. Now the familiar stream of reassurance is gone. Now she sits with a silence she used to weaponize, except this time, it is not a tactic. It is departure. And departure is heavier than drama. Drama still centers her. Silence does not. Silence says, I am no longer participating. I am no longer available for confusion. I am no longer funding this imbalance with my time, my nervous system, and my dignity. That is why your silence hit harder than your explanations ever did. Because your explanations still proved investment. Silence proved detachment. And detachment is terrifying to anyone who built comfort around your emotional availability. Now she starts replaying old moments. The way you used to check in. The way you remained steady when she was difficult. The patience she once interpreted as ordinary. The loyalty she assumed was replaceable. Suddenly, the things she overlooked become visible. This is another cruel law of human nature. Absence reveals value that familiarity concealed. Now the man she once kept at arm's length begins to feel significant in memory. Not because memory is always truthful, but because loss sharpens perception. And maybe she starts wondering. Was he really too much? Or was he simply too real for the games I was still attached to? Was he boring? Or was he peaceful in a world where I only knew how to respond to chaos? Was he controlling? Or did he just ask for standards I wasn't ready to meet? These are the questions regret asks in the dark. Not because you forced them. Because your absence made them unavoidable. But here is where many men fail. The moment they feel her re-enter, they collapse the lesson. A breadcrumb. A late night, hey. A vague, I've been thinking. A story view. A small sign of longing. And suddenly they want to reopen the door that took so much pain to close. Don't. Because if your growth is real, you must understand something deeper. Her return is not automatically your reward. Sometimes it is simply a test to see if you are still emotionally available on old terms. This is where silent authority demands discipline. Not coldness for the sake of ego. Not revenge disguised as wisdom. Discipline. The discipline to remember what it cost you to wake up. The discipline to resist confusing nostalgia with transformation. The discipline to recognize that someone missing access to your energy is not the same as someone being capable of honoring your heart. She thought you'd never walk. That belief allowed the disrespect to grow. Now she feels what many people only understand when it is too late. A good man does not become valuable the moment he leaves. He was valuable all along. Leaving simply removes the illusion that his presence was ordinary. Underscore 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 underscore. 4. You chose silence over chaos. Most people think silence is passive. It isn't. True silence is one of the most powerful psychological decisions a man can make when he has spent too long trying to be understood by someone committed to misunderstanding him. Because eventually, there comes a point when words stop being communication and start becoming self-humiliation. You explain. She twists. You clarify. She deflects. You bring up what hurt you. She challenges the timing, the tone, the phrasing, the intensity, everything except the wound itself. That cycle is not dialogue. It is erosion. And when a man realizes this, something changes in him. He understands that continuing to speak into a system that profits from confusion is not maturity. It is surrender. So he goes quiet. Not because he has nothing to say, but because he finally understands that not every door opens with honesty. Some doors only keep you standing there, exhausted, while your truth echoes back at you unheard. This is the moment where many men discover that silence is not emptiness. It is reclamation. It is the sound of your nervous system finally leaving a war it should never have had to fight daily. It is the moment you stop feeding a dynamic that survives on your over-explaining. It is the point where your peace becomes more important than being understood by someone invested in keeping you destabilized. And yes, society will often misunderstand this. It will call it withdrawal, avoidance, emotionally unavailable behavior, a lack of closure. But sometimes silence is the purest form of closure available. Because closure is not always a final conversation. Often, closure is the moment you stop negotiating with what has repeatedly harmed you. That's what many people miss. You did not choose silence because you stopped caring. You chose silence because caring was being used against you. You saw the pattern. The cryptic posts meant to provoke reaction. The occasional warmth dropped like bait after long distance. The vague spiritual captions masking unresolved behavior. The strategically timed reappearances whenever your energy seemed to withdraw. Modern relationships are full of this theater. Attention has become currency. Ambiguity has become strategy. And emotional reaction has become proof that access still exists. So when you stop reacting, you remove the fuel. Now the game stops being fun. Now the mirror appears. Now she has to sit with herself. Now there is no dramatic argument to tell her friends about. No evidence of your instability to twist into a narrative. No desperate paragraph to screenshot and interpret as proof of your neediness. Just your absence. Calm. Clean. Unreachable. That kind of silence carries something chaos never can: authority. Because authority is not loud. Authority is not defensive. Authority does not beg for recognition. Authority decides what it allows and what it no longer entertains. This is why silence unsettles people who relied on emotional control more than your emotional explanations ever did. When you were still explaining, they still had access. When you went silent, they lost the handle. And suddenly, all the behavior that once looked powerful starts to feel hollow. The posts look sadder. The flirting feels emptier. The attention from strangers feels thinner. The nights become quieter. The distractions become less effective. Because beneath performance, people still know when they mishandled something real. And when they do, silence becomes a chamber where memory grows teeth. She remembers how safe you were. How available you were. How much emotional labor you absorbed without making her feel judged. How many chances you gave without calling it sacrifice. Now she compares. Not always publicly. Not always consciously. But privately, the comparison begins. And here is where your growth must become serious. Because if you use silence only as a tactic to make her miss you, then you are still trapped. You are still orbiting her response. You are still letting your center be defined by whether she feels the loss. That is not freedom. Real silence is not performance. It is detachment with direction. You wake up earlier. You stop checking her page. You train your body. You rebuild your routines. You put your phone down and pick your life back up. You sit with the emptiness instead of running from it. You feel the withdrawal instead of romanticizing it. You stop calling pain love just because it came with chemistry and history. That is where transformation begins. Not in the moment she notices you're gone. In the moment you stop needing her to notice. Let her feel the silence. But do not build your future around her regret. Build it around your return to yourself. Underscore 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 underscore. 5. Now she remembers everything. Memory becomes brutally selective after loss. What people once dismissed casually, they replay with aching clarity once it is no longer available. That is where she is now. In the quiet. In the aftermath. In the strange emotional space where a person realizes they did not merely lose attention, they lost access to someone who was deeply, consistently real. Now she remembers the things she once treated like background noise. Your morning texts. Your patience during her chaos. The nights you stayed up trying to calm her mind while yours went unspoken. The way you showed up, not just when it was easy, but when it was inconvenient. Back then, she assumed those things would remain. That's the trap familiarity creates. People stop seeing devotion when it becomes regular. They stop valuing emotional safety when they haven't yet lived without it. They stop honoring consistency when the culture around them keeps shouting that excitement matters more than peace. So she chased stimulation. Validation. Attention. Novelty. The thrill of being desired. The temporary high of feeling wanted by many instead of being known by one. And now, in the cold light of consequence, she begins to understand the difference between being wanted and being cherished. The difference is enormous. Strangers can want you. Followers can want you. Old flings can want you. People in your DMs can want your body, your attention, your energy, your mystery. But being cherished? That requires presence, character, responsibility, depth. That is what you offered. And that is why the loss feels heavier now. Because the men who replace attention are common. The man who quietly gave loyalty, steadiness, patience, protection, and real emotional investment is not common. So memory turns against her. The jokes you made. The way you looked at her when she doubted herself. The plans you tried to build. The conversations she brushed aside. The discomfort on your face in moments when you felt something was wrong, and she still made you feel like the issue was your sensitivity. She remembers now. She remembers the eye rolls. The delays. The dismissals. The times she made you feel emotionally excessive just because you wanted what was mutual. The moments she took your vulnerability and met it with impatience instead of care. And here is the part that cuts deepest. At some point, she realizes you were not difficult to love. You were simply asking for reciprocity in a world that normalizes imbalance. That realization arrives late for many people. Too late. Now she watches from a distance. She sees the discipline. The calm. The routine. The way you no longer leak your energy into confusion. The fact that your life seems quieter, cleaner, more grounded without the constant emotional turbulence. And maybe she checks. Maybe she searches your name. Maybe she rereads old messages. Maybe she listens to old voice notes. Maybe she lingers on your photo longer than she should. Not because she suddenly became profound. But because absence has a way of stripping away ego and revealing what noise used to hide. She misses more than your presence. She misses the way your presence made her feel anchored. And that is why regret grows. Not because she lost control. Because she lost something that now feels irreplaceable. But your responsibility is not to become available just because she finally sees what was there. This is the line many men cross too quickly. They mistake her recognition for redemption. Her sadness for transformation. Her nostalgia for depth. Be careful. Some people don't come back because they've changed. They come back because the world outside your loyalty was colder than they expected. That is not always malice. Sometimes it is simply immaturity meeting consequence. But consequence alone does not qualify someone for re-entry into your life. This is where self-respect becomes practical. Do not return just because you are remembered. Do not reopen access just because you are missed. Do not confuse being valued in hindsight with being honored in real time. Because the most painful version of you was the one who kept giving after being shown the truth. Do not become him again. Let memory do what it does. Let her sit with it. Let her understand what emotional safety actually was. Let her realize that stability is not boring when life becomes real enough to need it. Let her finally see that a man who shows up consistently is not weak, he is rare. But you keep moving. Because your future cannot be built inside someone else's late understanding. Underscore 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 6. Let her sit in the loss, while you build. This is where the story truly changes. Not when she misses you. Not when she reaches out. Not when regret becomes visible. It changes when you stop measuring your healing by what she feels, and start measuring it by who you are becoming. That is the turning point. Because pain can make a man either obsessive or disciplined. Bitter or clear. Reactive or sovereign. And if you choose correctly, the same wound that once reduced you becomes the forge that rebuilds you. Let her sit in the loss. Not out of cruelty. Not out of vengeance. Out of consequence. Consequences are not hatred. They are reality arriving late. You spent enough time rescuing someone from the impact of their own behavior. Enough time absorbing emotional disorder and calling it patience. Enough time offering explanations where standards should have ended the conversation. Now it is different. Now the energy that once went into managing her confusion goes into building your own life. You train. Not because a better body guarantees love, but because discipline restores self-trust. You work. Not to prove your worth, but to stop letting your mind rot in emotional loops. You read. Journal. Walk. Pray. Create. Lift. Study. Build structure. Because structure saves men. When your mind wants to revisit the old messages, structure pulls you into the present. When loneliness tells you to check her page, structure redirects your hands. When memory romanticizes what hurt you, structure reminds you that consistency is stronger than longing. This is what growth actually looks like. Not posting fake indifference. Not performing success. Not pretending you never cared. Real growth is quieter. It is waking up with heaviness in your chest and still honoring the routine. It is driving to the gym with her memory in your head and finishing the set anyway. It is sitting alone on a Sunday, feeling the ache, and refusing to text someone who only loved you in fragments. It is unfollowing, blocking, deleting, not because you hate her, but because your mind deserves clean air. That is masculine healing in its mature form. Not emotional numbness. Emotional governance. This is also where the deeper lesson becomes clear. You were never really begging for her. You were begging for relief from uncertainty. For the return of a fantasy. For the restoration of an image. For the hope that your pain would make sense if she finally came back and chose you correctly. But healing means accepting that some chapters make sense only when they are over. Maybe she never had the emotional depth to match what you brought. Maybe she was too attached to attention, too underdeveloped in accountability, too comfortable with ambiguity, too shaped by a culture that teaches people how to attract more than how to honor. Whatever the reason, the lesson remains the same. A relationship without respect will eventually force you to choose between attachment and self-respect. Now you know which one matters more. So build. Build the morning version of yourself. Build the financial version of yourself. Build the spiritual version of yourself. Build the disciplined version of yourself. Build the man who no longer calls emotional chaos chemistry. Build the man who sees mixed signals as a warning, not a challenge. Build the man who values peace enough to leave what disturbs it repeatedly. This is the part most people never see. They see the breakup. They see the silence. They see the withdrawal. They don't see the private reconstruction. The mornings when you almost relapse and don't. The nights when you miss her and still choose yourself. The conversations you never send. The tears no one hears. The tiny daily acts by which a man slowly becomes someone his old pain can no longer control. That is the real victory. Not that she regrets losing you. That you became someone who finally understands what your presence is worth. And when the next woman comes, because she will, something in you will be different. You will notice inconsistency earlier. You will not rationalize obvious disrespect. You will not offer premium access to someone giving casual energy. You will not confuse intensity with character. You will not over-explain where standards should speak for themselves. You will move slower. See clearer. Leave earlier. And love better. That is what this pain was trying to teach you. Not that love is foolish. Not that all women are dangerous. Not that your heart was the mistake. The lesson is simpler and more powerful than that. Your heart is valuable. So your standards must be, too. Let her sit in the loss. And you? Keep building the life that made that loss permanent. Underscore 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 underscore. What this was really about. So let's bring this together. This was never just a story about a woman who treated you like an option. It was a story about what happens when loyalty is offered where it is not respected. What happens when patience becomes permission. What happens when a good man keeps trying to be understood by someone who benefits from keeping him emotionally unstable. We walked through 6 hard truths. First, she took you for granted while you were being real. Second, you tried everything, and that kept the cycle alive longer than it should have. Third, she thought you'd never walk, and that belief shaped the imbalance. Fourth, you chose silence over chaos, and that silence became your power. Fifth, now she remembers everything she once ignored. And sixth, while she sits in the loss, your task is not to look back, it is to build. That is the real message here. Not revenge. Not bitterness. Recognition. To recognize where you abandoned yourself. To recognize what your silence actually means. To recognize that healing is not getting her to understand your pain, it is becoming someone who no longer negotiates with what caused it. And if you take one thing from this video, let it be this. You did not lose your value because someone failed to honor it. You only lose when you keep returning to places that trained you to doubt it. Underscore 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 underscore. There are moments in a man's life when the most important thing he can do is stop reaching. Stop explaining. Stop persuading. Stop trying to turn confusion into commitment. Stop asking to be chosen by people who only love what you provide, not who you are. Because once you stop reaching, you begin returning. Returning to your standards. Returning to your peace. Returning to your routine. Returning to the version of yourself that does not collapse just because someone failed to see what you carried. And maybe that's the deepest truth of all. She did not teach you your worth. Her loss did. She did not create your strength. The silence did. She did not define your future. Your decision to walk did. So let her remember. Let her wonder. Let her feel the absence she once underestimated. But don't you look back. There is a version of you on the other side of this that is calmer, sharper, cleaner, harder to manipulate, harder to distract, and far more aligned with the life you were meant to build. Choose him. Every day. Every hour. Every time memory tries to drag you backward. Choose him. Underscore 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 underscore. If this spoke to something real in you, write "I choose myself" in the comments. Not for performance. As a decision. And if you've ever had to learn this lesson the hard way, if you've ever stayed too long, explained too much, and finally found peace in silence, share your perspective below. Someone reading your words may realize they are not crazy, not weak, and not alone. If this video gave language to something you've been carrying quietly, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Because there are millions of men walking through silent pain, and sometimes one clear truth at the right moment is enough to change the direction of a life.